The Wandering Drummer and the Crying Monkey. Agra, an ancient city quietly veiled in the mist of time, carries with it tales no one wishes to retell. In the poorest slum outside the city's walls, there lived a nameless man known only as the drummer. No one knew his real name, and no one cared. He was merely a shadow passing through alleyways, beating his drum, singing, and moving on. That day, the sky was unusually gray and cold. The wind howled through torn tarps, slapping his gaunt cheeks as if to strip away the last remnants of warmth. He beat his drum all day along Agra's main market street. Each beat echoed like the lonely heartbeat of someone teetering on despair. But no one stopped. No one offered a single coin. At night, he dragged himself back to his hut roofed with dried banana leaves, the home of those the world had forgotten. No food. No family. Just the gnawing pain of hunger and the silent gaze of his only companion, a small monkey, tied to a corner post. It looked at him with an understanding beyond animal instinct. He could no longer cry. His tears had dried up long ago. Only questions repeated in his mind. Why? I lived decently. I didn't steal. I didn't lie. Why does the world ignore me? If you agree with the old man's point of view, please comment the number 1 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful and inspiring content. In a moment of despair, he thought of the palace, the place of golden walls and endless feasts. Maybe I should go there. Maybe, if I bring my drum and sing with all my soul, someone might hear me. And so he made a plan. At dawn the next day, he washed himself in ice-cold water, clutched his rotting drum, led the little monkey, and walked, not because he believed he would succeed, but because he had nothing left to lose. The palace gates of Agra were unlike anything the man had ever seen. A towering wall of stone, edged with ivory, inlaid with copper panels that reflected sunlight like fire, incinerating the hopes of beggars who came to plead. But he didn't come to beg. He came to drum. And drum he did with everything he had left: the pounding of hunger, the tremor of a forsaken soul, the wordless groan of shattered dreams. The palace trembled slightly. Someone had heard. A guard appeared, expression blank but not cruel. "What do you want?" he asked. "I'm not here to beg. I only wish the king to hear the song of a man with nothing but a broken drum." Something in his voice made the guard pause. Just a moment. Then he vanished behind the gates. Minutes later, a deep voice echoed from within. "Let him in." The king of Agra, revered as the shadow of Allah, was not what the drummer expected. He wore no jeweled crown, just a simple white turban. But his eyes, those eyes held an entire universe of desire and power. The drummer entered. No bow. No fear. No hope. "Who are you?" the king asked, not with malice, nor pity. "A man who once believed in the goodness of the world," he replied. "And now? Now, I only believe in the beat of my drum." The king chuckled lightly. "Then play it for me." And he did. Not a cheerful tune, but a requiem for the starving beneath the burning sun. A dirge for the elderly sleeping on bare ground. A wordless prayer for souls never once called by name. When the drumming stopped, the entire palace fell silent. The king nodded. "You have talent. But talent does not buy bread. I shall grant you a gift special, worthy of one so unique." He held his breath. Perhaps food? A roof? A job? No. It was a monkey. A large monkey, dressed in silk, with eyes full of sorrow, eyes that seemed to have seen every sin on earth. Returning home, the drummer carried the monkey, what the king called the gift of grace, on his shoulder. But all he felt in his heart was a larger void than ever before. No bread, no rice, no promises. Just a monkey, as if his entire life of poverty had been wrapped into one cruel joke by power. By the dying fire, he whispered to the monkey, "Do you understand? They didn't give me bread. They gave me a performer's tool for their amusement." The monkey said nothing. But its eyes made him feel as though he was speaking to a friend, or perhaps to the last shard of his forgotten humanity. The next morning, he was no longer an artist. He was a man with a performing monkey. But what he taught it wasn't comedy but cunning, subtle movements, distractions, quick glances, fake twirls, and theft. Not because he had lost his morality, but because he had no choice. "If this world only feeds the thieves," he muttered, "then I shall eat like a thief, but cry like an honest man." And he performed not just with his drum, but through a full act with the monkey. Laughter rose. Coins dropped into the pouch hanging around the monkey's neck. Admiring eyes watched them. But in the shadows, the monkey carried out another show. A ballet of fingers. First, a gold coin. Next, a necklace. Then, a turquoise brooch. No one knew. No one suspected. Just the man and the monkey. A silent pact, written in hunger and despair. The village nestled in the lush green valley was known for its wealth. Every red-tiled roof, towering iron gate, and perfectly trimmed hedge marking a clear line between the haves and the have-nots. He arrived with a quiet heart, asking for little, just a warm meal, a bed not made of dirt, a glance without contempt. But after only a few hours of performance, he realized, this place was colder than any December night. The children laughed. The adults shook their heads. The tavern owner yelled at him not to block the path. Someone in the crowd muttered, "No one here needs a begging clown. Take your broken drum somewhere else." He stayed silent. But the monkey didn't. It knelt not as part of the act, but as if begging for mercy. But who cared? A goldsmith known as the stingiest man in the village pointed at the drummer and shouted, "We work hard for our meals. Why should a ragged man come drum and demand money? Leave." At that moment, the drummer didn't feel insulted. He just felt empty. As if the hearts of this village were deserts. And his own heart was the last drop of water, now evaporating under their bitter laughter. He turned to leave. But then a voice rang out. Deep. Warm. And so powerful it froze the air. "Stop. That's enough." All heads turned. An old man, long white beard, leaning on a wooden cane, stepped forward slowly. His eyes were closed, either blind, or seeing something others could not. "Is this how we treat a guest?" he asked. His half-closed eyes seemed to pierce into souls. No one dared respond. The old man nodded and turned to the drummer. "Where do you come from, son?" "From hunger and despair, sir." "So did I. And I've learned one thing. The coldest thing in this world is not the night wind, but the indifferent eyes of those who have enough." Then, the old man whom the village revered as Baba Allah uttered words that silenced the crowd. "If none of you wish to offer shelter to a man trying to earn with dignity, then let my house do that instead." Baba Allah's home wasn't grand, it was humble and oddly small amid the luxurious villas of the village. Yet there was something about it that brought peace to the soul, the scent of burning wood, the faint chime of wind bells, and a sacred silence as though each night a bodhisattva sat in quiet meditation there. The man was invited to stay in a small room by the wall. There was little, just a mat and a water jug, but for him, a man used to sleeping beneath stormy skies, it was a palace. "You may stay as long as you wish," Baba said, then turned away without another word. No questions about the past. No speculation about the future. That night, he lay beside the steady breath of the monkey, heart heavy. "I should feel grateful," he thought. "But why does something inside me still scream?" And in the dark, he whispered to the monkey, "I can't live off the kindness of others forever. If the world sees me only as a clown, then let me be the most dangerous clown they've ever known." The monkey opened its eyes and looked straight at him. No fear. No agreement. Just the gaze of a companion forced down a path with no return. The next day, the village welcomed a new kind of act. The drummer still beat his drum. The monkey still danced. But something had shifted, something subtle, precise. The audience didn't know that while they laughed at the monkey's acrobatics, a bracelet had vanished from a lady's wrist. A hairpin slipped from a girl's curls. A gold coin disappeared from a vegetable basket. And everyone smiled. No one knew. No one suspected. Except the man. And the monkey. And perhaps Baba Allah, the blind man who always sat facing the market, as though listening to something not with ears, but with the heart. That afternoon, the sky turned the color of bruises like the body of someone long used to being beaten by fate. At the central market, a crowd had gathered again, not to trade, but to wait. They waited for the familiar drum beat, the monkey leaping over their heads, something, anything, to soothe the restless lives hidden behind silk and status. And then, the performance began. The man played his drum, this time with a new rhythm, slower, flirtier, like circus music from hell. The monkey with glowing red eyes in the twilight danced like its very body was a puppet of the gods. No one realized that every leap was choreographed. One flip, one flick of a finger. One tumble, a necklace gone. But that evening, something changed. A woman stepped out from the goldsmith's shop, her hair in a high bun, her clothes shimmering, her arms layered with gold. She was the wife of the wealthiest merchant in the region, a noblewoman, though her face was as gentle as a village mother's. She walked through the crowd without glancing once. The monkey watched her. The man gave a small nod. The monkey understood. It sprang forward, the usual routine leap, shoulder tap, laughter erupting. But this time, the target wasn't a small trinket. It was a heavy gold necklace, shaped like a lotus blossom. And it succeeded. As easy as taking candy from a child. But just as it turned to leave, the monkey paused. The woman, perhaps sensing something, reached for her neck. Panic bloomed. "My necklace, it's gone. It's gone," she cried out. People rushed over. Some showed sympathy. Others frowned in suspicion. Children laughed, thinking it was part of the show. But the monkey stood still. It didn't return. It didn't continue the act. It looked at the woman not like a beast at prey, but like a child who had unknowingly crushed a bird's nest and now watched the pieces crumble in tears. The woman collapsed to the ground, burying her face in her hands, sobbing as though she'd lost a limb. Not because of the gold's value, but from the feeling of being violated, a wound unseen by all except the monkey. And for the first time, the monkey felt shame. It turned back, walking toward the man, but no longer dancing, no longer grinning. Its arms hung limp, burdened with a guilt far heavier than the necklace it had taken. The man understood too late. He yanked the rope around the monkey's neck, dragging it through the crowd like a traitor. The crowd began to murmur. Some frowned. An old woman sighed. Strange, the monkey's different today. Back in the small room at Baba Allah's, the man slammed the door and threw the drum into a corner. The monkey sat still, eyes wide. What the hell was that? The man growled. You trying to betray me? Ruin our work? Want to starve? The monkey didn't answer. But a tear rolled down its cheek. The man froze. It wasn't sweat. It wasn't rain. It was a tear. An animal could cry. And a man could only steal. The silence was so thick it echoed. Like glass cracking. Reflecting the real face of who he had become. That night, he couldn't sleep. The monkey curled up with its back turned like a child angry at its mother. He sat by the flickering oil lamp, staring into the flame as if it might hold an answer. When did I begin to fall? Was it when I was gifted a performing monkey, or when I stopped believing in human kindness? There was no answer. Just then, a knock. Baba. He didn't speak. He only placed a hot cup of tea before the man and whispered one sentence. Greed is a snake. If you nurse it in your sleeve, one day it will bite your heart. Then Baba left, leaving the man alone with the lamp, the tea, and a monkey that had begun to cry. Rain fell that night, sudden and thin, like a morning veil draped over a sleeping village drunk on wealth. Beneath the thatched roof, the man sat by his old cloth bag, fingers brushing each gold coin, each stolen gem, not out of lust, but like a man preparing to leave, counting the remains of his decay. He had made his decision. Tomorrow, he would leave the village, no farewell. No apology. Everything was ready. The treasure bundled and hidden. The patched up cloak. And the monkey, silent in the corner, facing the wall, no longer dancing, no longer flipping. He whispered. We have enough. No more performances. Tomorrow, before the sun rises, we leave. I'll take you somewhere no one knows us. No more Baba, no more suspicious eyes, no more women crying over stolen gold. The monkey didn't respond. It only sighed. Before sleep, he decided to do one last thing. He wanted to be sure the treasure would be safe even if something happened. And so, in the rain, cloaked and silent, he led the monkey from Baba Allah's humble house. They walked to the ancient tree at the village's edge, long abandoned by the villagers due to tales of spirits and curses. No one came here. No one would. He dug a deep hole. Placed the treasure bag inside. Buried it. Then stood still. The rain sliced like knives, but his chest burned not from guilt, but from excitement. He turned to the monkey, whispering, Tomorrow, we change our fate. No one will stop us. But the monkey didn't reply. It only bowed its head. And looked at him. With eyes no longer belonging to an animal. And that look made him shiver. The next morning, when he returned to the old tree to unearth the treasure and prepare to leave, the ground had been disturbed. The hole was empty. Nothing. Everything, the gold, the jewels, the stolen ornaments, was gone. Vanished like smoke. He stood frozen. Then dropped to his knees, clawing at the dirt with bare hands, as if by sheer effort he could rewind fate. But there was nothing. Only dirt. Cold. Wet. And hollow like his heart. In a panic, he turned to the monkey, the only thing left by his side. Did you take it? He whispered, voice trembling. The monkey didn't answer. but its eyes were distant and quiet. Not accusing. Not defending. Just waiting for another question. So, what now? What will you do with empty hands? Drums sounded. From afar. Not from him. Not from the monkey. But from the center of the village where the people had gathered under the old banyan tree in the market. He heard crying. Then someone shouted. The stolen items. They've been found. All the missing jewelry was inside a cloth bag beneath the banyan tree. A miracle? Who found them? No one. The monkey led us there. He staggered. Rushed to the scene, blending into the commotion. Eyes scanned the crowd searching for the guilty. But Baba Allah, standing at the center, raised a hand toward the sky. There's no need to search. Truth walks out on its own, when the time is right. He couldn't breathe. Every cell in his body felt like it would burst. His heart pounded with fear, fury, and emptiness. Why? Why did the monkey betray me? And then, the unimaginable happened. The monkey stepped forward from the middle of the crowd. Not tied. Not guided. Voluntarily. It stood before the people, unwrapped the rope from around its neck, then turned to look directly at him. A long look. Quiet. Not angry. Not tearful. Not regretful. Just, letting go. Baba Allah spoke. This is the monkey that once made you laugh. But it is also the witness to the deceit hidden behind the drumbeat. It is not the thief. It was a tool. The one who commanded it, that is who must bow before justice. He couldn't breathe. His legs trembled. The world spun. Someone screamed. It's him. He's the monkey's master. He hid the treasure. He did it all. The crowd surged. He tried to run. But a hand held him back. Not a human hand. The monkey's. It didn't scratch. Didn't strike. Just held like a friend, returning one final lesson. Stop running. There's nothing left to run from, its eyes seemed to say. And in that moment, he collapsed. No more shouting. No more denial. No more anger. Only tears. For the first time in his life he cried. Not for the lost treasure, but for the self he had lost. He lay on the ground, gripping the soil, face buried in the damp earth. No one moved. No more shouts or accusations. Just silence heavy as a falling sky and the glimmer of rain puddles catching the morning light. In the crowd, Baba Allah stood still, his old white robe gently rippling in the breeze like a flag of a village finally learning to look inward. A young man muttered. We should punish him. He shamed us. Lied to us. Made us look like fools. An old woman sighed. But look at him now. What does he even have left? The greatest crime is living a life, without ever knowing what you're doing. The crowd began to fracture. Some demanded punishment. Others wanted forgiveness. Most just stood silent, unsure where right and wrong began or ended. Everything blurred. Then, a voice rasped a cough so faint few noticed until it formed words. No one is born a thief. But hunger can hollow a soul the way it hollows a belly, and then a man bites his own hand. Everyone held their breath. Looking around. Who said that? No one. Just the monkey. It stood there small, trembling, hands clenched before its chest as if mustering the strength to open a door no one believed could exist. Its voice wasn't human, not fully formed, but it spoke with soul, with wool, with feeling. A child whispered. The monkey, it can speak. Baba Allah nodded, eyes soft. Not because it's a miracle, but because you've forgotten how to hear the things that truly matter. So Allah gave you a voice, from where you least expected. The monkey continued, its voice shaky, but each word clear. This man was never evil. He was only hungry. And hunger often eats away virtue, not because one chooses to lose it, but because no one offered them a hand to hold onto it. The crowd was silent. Those who once hurled insults now lowered their heads. Those who mocked his broken drum now couldn't bear to meet their own reflection in the monkey's eyes. The man was still on his knees, but now, he looked up. Tears streaked through dirt. You could speak this whole time, he asked. The monkey turned to him. Not with scorn. Not with pride. But gently, like a confession. Since the night you forced me to steal the necklace from the woman. That was when my heart wanted to scream. But I stayed silent, until now. He choked on a sob. Why didn't you leave me? Why did you still hold my hand, when I tried to run? The monkey reached out, gently touched his forehead. Because I knew, there was still some humanity in you. I was just waiting, for you to hear it again. Baba Allah stepped forward. No one should be condemned for the wrongs hunger forced them into. But no one should walk away without a reckoning either. His crime was not just theft. It was wounding trust. But you share the blame too. He turned slowly, locking eyes with each villager. How many times did you see him beat his drum and turn away? How many times did you let your cheap laughter drown out his silent cries for help? How many times did you forget that compassion doesn't live in your pockets, but in your gaze, in your hand held out? Heads bowed. An old man wept softly. I used to feed my dogs meat, but never offered him a single piece of bread. A mother holding her child flushed red. I taught my son to avoid him, as if he were a disease. Baba raised his hand. Today, we don't judge him. We judge ourselves. He bent down, helped the man to his feet, and placed a hand on his shoulder. You lost your way. But who hasn't? What matters now, is whether you wish to return. The man looked at Baba, then at the monkey. His voice broke. If I can, I want to start over. Not because I fear punishment, but because, for the first time, I feel ashamed. Baba smiled. Then, Allah has already forgiven you. That day, the man was not exiled from the village. Baba let him stay, but gave him a task. Every day, he must play his drum, not to beg, but to tell stories. Of mistakes, of awakenings, and of the monkey who taught an entire village to listen again, to the voice within. And from that day forward, with each dawn, the drum sounded once more. Not for amusement. Not for theft. But as a reminder. A person may be poor without money. But they are truly destitute, only when there is no one left willing to forgive. If you're still watching this video and would like to honor Allah, please comment the number 9 below to let us know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, we encourage you to do so and turn on the bell. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful, inspiring stories for you. 3 days after that fateful unmasking, when the air still carried the chill of morning mist and the village well echoed with ripples of a tale spreading like wind over wheat, the man, no longer called the thief, decided to leave. No one expelled him. No one chased him out. He was the one who chose to go. I want to begin again. but not in the place where I've already been forgiven, he told Baba Allah, his voice quiet, like someone whose strings had snapped but still searched for a different melody. Baba nodded. You're not running away. You're walking away. Is there a difference? Yes. Running is out of fear. Walking is because you know what must be done. And so, on a morning of neither rain nor sun, just wind, a man put on his cloth robe, slung the drum over his shoulder, held the monkey's lead, and walked away from the village that had learned to see itself in the mirror. They headed east toward lands where no one had heard the offbeat rhythm of his drum. Not to beg, but to tell stories. He no longer hid gold in his bag, but tucked tears between his tails. At every village they passed, he asked permission to drum for the children. And when the little ones gathered, eyes lit like morning stars, he began to tell stories. Of hunger. Of mistakes. Of forgiveness. And of a monkey that learned to cry. The children sat wide-eyed. Then, after each performance, they begged him to teach them to drum. Some used pot lids. Some used empty cans. One even snuck their mother's lunchbox. And so, the drum class of the poor was born not with blackboards or textbooks, but with one simple thing. The desire to understand the rhythm of a heart. The man once seen as a thief became a teacher. Nameless. Without title. But the first to teach the children. A drum isn't just for performance. It's a reminder. I am still alive. And I can still do what's right. One night, after the children had fallen asleep on a floor roofed with leaves, the man and the monkey sat under a tamarind tree. He muttered. Remember? I once taught you how to slip into pockets. Now I teach children to drum so they'll never have to. The monkey nodded silent, as always. But its eyes glowed gently, like a meditating monk who needed no words. I lost everything, the man said. And yet, strangely, I feel like I've never had so much. The monkey stretched, then leaned against his shoulder. And together, they looked up at the sky, where a crescent moon lit their silhouettes, two souls who once slipped from the edge of virtue, now walking back, like penitents with a drum. A story, and an old faith stitched together. On the road leading to the southern fringe of the Gangetic Plain, the man and the monkey stumbled into a village, or rather, the remnants of one. Houses tilted. Walls crumbled. Thatched roofs sagged like the gums of a hungry elder. The trees still grew, but no one tended them. The rice was ripe but unharvested. 3 months earlier, a storm had swept away both people and hope. All that remained were children. Not just young, but orphaned. Kids, aged 5 to 10, lived silently in old huts like ghosts lingering above the ground. No one spoke. No one laughed. No one fought, something children usually do. The man arrived and set up his drum in the dusty courtyard. No one approached. He struck it softly. Just once. As if asking the earth if life still pulsed beneath it. The monkey flipped through the air, not to entertain, but as a greeting. No one laughed. Except one girl. She stood under a broken almond tree. Maybe 8. Wearing patched clothes. Hair tangled. Clutching something. A sketchbook. That night, while the man and monkey stayed in the abandoned home of the deceased village chief, someone quietly placed a banana leaf at their door. On it 2 roasted sweet potatoes. No note. No name. Just a charcoal sketch, crude but unmistakable. A man with a drum. A monkey wearing a hat. A group of laughing children. The man's hand trembled as he picked up the drawing. "How did she know?" he whispered. "I never performed." They didn't laugh. The monkey looked at him, then at the drawing. Then nudged his hand as if asking him to flip it over. The back held another sketch. A man stealing. A monkey hiding gold. A woman crying. The man went still. That girl. She had seen everything. The next day, when he set the drum up again, the children began to sit in a circle. No words. No clapping. But their eyes were wide open. Their hearts quietly listened. The drum beat struck not just the ground, but the dust covering their forgotten childhood. The monkey didn't perform much. It only sat nearby. But for the first time, it handed out colored pencils. The ones the man had picked up from a ruined market, intending to sell as scrap. The children held them hesitant. Then, began to draw. No smiling faces. No happy scenes. Only, silent images of what had been lost. One drew a house mid-explosion. Another, a mother's outstretched hand fading into wind. Another, the monkey, placing its hand over a child's heart. The man sat surrounded by the pictures, feeling as if he was no longer grounded to earth, but floating through a confession made of crayon and ash. Each line a blade. Cutting not skin, but calling tears. That night, he found the girl who'd drawn the first picture. The one who stood under the almond tree. She didn't run. Didn't flinch. She simply looked at him, then handed over her sketchbook. A new page. What did it show? A man covering his face in tears. Behind him, a monkey playing a drum. "Is that me?" he asked. The girl nodded. "I cried." She nodded again. "When?" She raised her hand to her chest, then drew a glowing dot at the center of the man's chest. "Are these tears?" She shook her head. She drew a small open door. And in that moment, he understood. The girl hadn't heard with her ears. She had listened, with her heart. The man returned to sit beside the monkey. His hand trembled. For the first time in his life. The life of a pickpocket, a trickster, a performer. He understood what true guilt felt like. Not the kind from being caught, but the kind when someone sees through you, without judgment. On the third day, the orphan village came alive. The drawings were strung across lines like prayer flags. The children beat drums made of cans, of empty tins, echoing across the square. No one spoke, but the sounds rose like song. A man stood among them, with no name anymore. He didn't need one, because that day, he wasn't the thief, or the teacher, or the penitent. He was a living drum, a soul that knew pain, knew love, and had learned to tell stories through the cracks of his own heartbeat. Rumors spread like cooking smoke caught in the first winds of the season. Somewhere in the south, there was a ruined village where children were painting life itself. A monkey who could listen. A nameless man who taught drumming instead of morality. And each child's drawing, not beautiful, but real, seemed to rewrite human fate with the trembling strokes of a tiny heart. It wasn't long before they arrived. A convoy of gleaming SUVs, dusted in gold-brown earth, rolled into the village like gods descending from clouds. They wore white t-shirts stamped with charity, carrying drones, cameras, and backpacks emblazoned with their organization's logo. To them, everything was footage. Leading them was a woman named Sana, who stepped from her vehicle with a smile permanently trained to nod at the perfect moments. "Here it is," she exclaimed. "Wonderful. Great angle. Start rolling." One crew member pointed a camera at the artwork hanging in the courtyard. A frightened child hid behind a straw pile. Another turned away, shielding their eyes with their hand. The man with the drum stepped from the shade of a tree. He stood tall. He didn't bow. "Stop," he said. Sana turned, surprised. "Hello. Are you the one teaching the kids to paint? That's amazing. We're from a social organization making a documentary to raise funds for underprivileged children." He didn't answer. "We'll host an art exhibition. Artwork painted with pain but turned into hope. Do you understand? These stories need to be told." He glanced around. The children had retreated into corners. The silent girl clutched her sketchbook, eyes wide, hands trembling. He turned to the monkey. "Do you see?" The monkey nodded, eyes red. It understood. The man stepped forward, standing between the camera and the drawings. "I know what you want," he said, voice low, not angry, but cold. "You don't see these children. You see moving content. You don't hear the drums. You hear the sound of donations landing in your account." Sana frowned. "You misunderstand. This is for the kids." "No. It's for you," he cut her off. "You need something to clean your conscience. A little clip that helps you sleep at night. But you don't live here. You haven't heard the wind pass through tangled hair. You haven't seen a child draw their mother's hand, then erase it, because they misremembered the number of fingers." The entire crew stood silent. Sana tried to smile. "Come on. We can collaborate. The kids will get gifts. Books, crayons, candies. They don't need candy. They need silence they can feel safe in." He pointed to the silent girl. "That girl doesn't speak. But she drew my pain before I even dared to face it. You think a few photos can capture that?" Sana froze. He continued. "I used to steal. Not money but trust. And I paid for it with shame that never ends. You're doing the same. You just don't realize you're stealing. You call it relief. I call it trespassing." The monkey stepped forward. It climbed the wooden post where a drawing of a man hiding his crying face hung and took it down. Then carried it to him. He took it. Held it up to the sky. "I'll give you one thing. This picture. Not for display. Not for sale. But to hang in your offices where there's air conditioning and coffee. So every time you walk in, you remember. Never turn pain into a product." A young member of the crew whispered. "Miss Sana, maybe we should go." Sana hesitated. Then nodded. When the convoy rolled away, leaving behind a thick cloud of dust and a strange emptiness, the man turned and looked down at the silent girl. "Were you scared?" he asked. She shook her head. Then quickly sketched an image. A man standing in front of a camera. A monkey biting a camera cable. And a child, smiling. The man laughed. For the first time he laughed without shame. That night, there was no drumming. No performance. Only a ring of fire. And children painting each other's faces with powdered color. The monkey danced slowly, as if meditating. The man told his story. For the first time. Without hiding. No one left early. No one asked right or wrong. Only nods. Hands holding hands. And in that moment he understood. Some things don't need to be filmed. Don't need applause. They just need to be lived honestly. Night fell fast like a black blanket dropped over the cold earth. The wind was still. But the man shivered not from the cold, but from the fevered girl lying unconscious on a tattered mat. Her skin burned to the touch. Eyes shut. Lips cracked. Each breath sounded like it could be her last. None of the children knew what to do. The monkey clutched her hand, fur soaked with tears. The man looked around. No one to help. No Baba. No charity team. Only one choice remained. The pharmacy in the distant town 7 kilometers through Forest Road. Stay and watch over her, he told the monkey. If I don't come back before dawn, find someone. Help her. The monkey nodded, eyes sharp with unspoken instructions. The man turned and left. He didn't take the drum. He took nothing except calloused feet. A heart no longer afraid of pain. And an unspoken promise. I'll come back. I swear. The night road twisted and stretched like old memories. The farther he walked, the more familiar it felt. Too familiar. This wasn't the first time he had walked into the dark, empty-handed. With a storm inside his chest. Back then, he had run. From hunger. From scornful eyes. Toward wealth, with nimble fingers slipping into strangers' pockets. But tonight, he didn't run. He walked forward. At the fork that led to the abandoned graveyard. Where roots broke through stone. Where iron gates rusted green. And bats buzzed like lullabies for forgotten ghosts. A voice rang out. Where are you going in the night, penitent drummer? He stopped. A figure stepped from behind the ancient banyan tree. Tall, thin. Wearing a tattered black cloak. Gripping a staff carved with strange symbols. His face was half in shadow, half lit by a crescent moon. Looking like both someone familiar and a mirage. Who are you? The man asked, stepping back. The one you used to be, the figure replied, voice like wind whistling through a hollow bamboo. I don't understand. You don't need to. Just remember. Do you remember me? Back then, you called me opportunity. The world called me the devil who trades drums for gold. The man's hands trembled. You're the merchant I met when I first started stealing? The one who taught me to hide necklaces in the base of the drum? The one who gave me my first coin? The figure nodded, smirking. And tonight I return not to collect, but to offer. Offer what? A new drum. Made of snake skin. Strike it once people open their wallets. Strike it twice gold rains down. And if I refuse, the girl dies. Silence. The last words fell like a hammer. His chest clenched. His breath caught. Not out of fear, but because he hesitated. The figure stepped closer, laying the dark drum on the ground. You only need to use it once. Take it to tomorrow's fair. Strike it 3 times. I'll handle the rest. She will be saved. And you will have a chance at riches again. The man bent down, hands trembling, and touched the drum's surface. Soft as silk. But something breathed beneath the skin. As if a soul were trapped inside, waiting to be released by a lie. He pulled his hand back. No. The figure frowned. You choose poverty. No, I choose responsibility. You think ethics will cure the sick? People need medicine, not morals. The man stood. I once traded my morals for money. And nearly killed myself. This time, I'll trade my life for trust. The figure stared at him for a moment, then melted into the tree's shadow, as if he had never existed. He ran. Through the graveyard. Past the ditch. Up the steep hill. He reached the pharmacy before dawn. With scratched feet. A torn body. But clean hands. The pharmacist looked at him like he was a madman, but still handed over a bottle of fever medicine and an old ginseng vial. He had no money left. Only his old drum. And he traded it for the medicine. No drum beats rang out that morning. Only the breath that arrived in time to save a child. When he returned, the monkey was still by the girl's side. Eyes sunken. Lips dry. But still holding her hand. He bent down, placed the pill on her lips. Poured water. Waited. 10 minutes later, the girl stirred. Her brow tightened. Her eyes slowly opened. Her small hand gently squeezed his finger. No words. But the thank you was louder than any drum. Since that night, the drum never rang in the village again. The old drum had been traded for medicine. The black drum, the one that could rain gold with a single beat, was left to rot in a dream. Now, every day began in silence, followed by the soft tapping from the children's little hands. They began crafting their own drums. From milk cans, plastic tubs, cardboard wrapped in rope. One child flipped a cooking pot. Another used a hollow bamboo. Each beat was sharp, uneven, messy, but real. As real as the tiny hearts learning to beat again after being suffocated by loss. The man didn't teach. He simply sat nearby, watching each child discover their rhythm. Sometimes, he quietly tapped 2 fingers on his knee, as if trying to remember what it felt like back then, when he made people cry, and now wanted to learn how to make them feel at peace. The silent girl, the one whose life he had crossed forests to save, recovered slowly. But each day, she drew. Not sad drawings, but ones where the monkey flew. Page 1, the monkey with large white wings, soaring above a field. Page 2, the monkey with closed eyes, light shining behind it. Page 3, the monkey laying down its collar on a round drum. The man was stunned. Is she foreshadowing something? The monkey began to change. It ate less. Stopped playing with the children. It often sat alone on the rooftop at dusk, gazing toward distant mountains. Places no one had ever been. Sometimes it trembled, as if dreaming. Once, it jumped up and tapped a single beat on a tin drum. Then walked away, never returning to it. The man grew concerned. Are you sick? He asked. The monkey shook its head. Tired? No. Then, why do you keep staring like you want to leave? The monkey didn't answer. But its eyes knew something. One morning, the man found the monkey asleep on the children's paper drum. Still. Eyes shut. Next to it, a drawing by the silent girl. The monkey flying. Below, children playing drums. In the center, the man, hand over his heart, crying. The man froze. No, no, it can't be. He cradled the monkey. Shook it gently. Hey. You're not allowed to go. I haven't finished apologizing. The monkey opened its eyes, tired, but clear. It lifted one finger mimicking humans and placed it over his lips. as if to say, "SHH." Then it pointed to his heart. Then to the children beating drums under the morning sun. "I'm done." No words. Just the look in its eyes. That day, the village held a small performance. No guests, no cameras, no tickets. Just the children, sitting in a circle. Each holding a handmade drum, tapping along to each other's rhythm. The monkey did not dance. It walked the circle, placing a hand on each child's head, as if passing something on. Finally, it sat beside the man. It didn't speak. Didn't ask for food. Didn't play. It simply rested its head on his shoulder. He cried without tears. Only quiet sobs. Because he knew. This was the final performance. That night, the monkey didn't return to the hut. The man searched everywhere. Until he came to the base of the old tree. The place where he once buried stolen treasure. The place where he had once been the worst version of himself. There it was. Curled up at the foot of the tree. Breathing softly. Eyes open, staring at the stars. Beside it, was the old collar rope. The one he used to tie it when leading it to deceive the world. It had taken it off. "You knew today would be the last, didn't you?" he asked, voice cracking. The monkey didn't nod. But it smiled. And then, like a dream, it closed its eyes. And did not open them again. The man didn't scream. Didn't rage. He simply carried the monkey to the village square. Laid it on an old mat. And began to play the drum. Not fast. Not cheerful. But like a funeral chant. A requiem for a friend who never betrayed him. One by one, the children joined in. Slow, uneven, but sincere. That night, the longest drum beat ever heard in the village rang out. Not to entertain. Not to teach. But to send off a soul. Who had walked through this world in silence. Days passed after the monkey's departure. The village square still echoed with drums each morning. But everyone knew, the sound had changed. No more silly tumbles. No monkey swinging from branches. Only the honest rhythm of small hands. Learning to hold each other through loss. The man didn't speak much. He simply kept the corner of the yard where the monkey once slept clean. He hung a tiny bell on a branch. And when the wind blew, it rang like a whisper between two worlds. 1 week later, he stood before the children. "I'm leaving," he said. The children went quiet. The silent girl clutched the hem of his shirt. He knelt down, embraced each of them one by one. "You don't need me forever. You need to continue. And to pass it on. You are the monkey's remaining drum beat. So play it right. Play it true. Play it kindly." The silent girl drew one final picture. A man walking away, holding a drum. No monkey on his shoulder, only a white feather. Behind him, the children beating their drums across the horizon. He left the village on a misty morning. No drum beats, no belongings. Only a new drum, made from old wood and buffalo hide. A gift from the children. The drum was heavy. But his heart was light. From then on, stories spread of the wandering drummer. A man who traveled from village to village. Asking for nothing, entertaining no one. He simply arrived. Struck a single beat. And told a story. Of hunger. Of mistakes. Of a monkey that cried. Of a girl who couldn't speak but could draw. And of a bell that rang goodbye in the wind. The elders listened. The children tapped along. And the drummer never needed anyone to remember his name. Because he had left the rhythm of his heart in a place that truly existed. Years later, a group of young people, travelers, scholars, journalists, returned to the village where there had once been the man and the monkey who could speak. They listened to tales, took notes. Some remained skeptical. But then they arrived. The village still stood. Not prosperous, but clean, orderly, warm. At its center was a large ebony drum, polished each morning. Around it, paintings hung, not framed, just clipped with string and bamboo pins. Children's drawings of the monkey, of tears, and of forgiveness. A thin old man, the only one who remembered the first drumbeat, pointed to a small wooden sign beneath the banyan tree. This is where the monkey is buried. Beneath it is the collar it took off that final night. Above, the bell, if you hear it, be still. A young woman from the group began to cry. Not because of the story, but because of the children's eyes. They were drumming. Not for show. Not for film. Just drumming. To remember. At the far end of the village, by the riverbank, stood a small hut. Inside sat an older man, hair silvering, tapping the drum gently for a few lost children who had wandered there from far away. He didn't say his name, didn't tell who he was. But when one child asked, "Grandpa, who is this drum beat for?" he simply smiled and replied, "For my monkey. He still hears it." Thank you for joining us today. We would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share one thing this story taught you, and how you'll carry that into your life. Your words matter to us. Reading your reflections brings us strength and inspiration. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue crafting stories that uplift, inspire, and heal. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.